Hi there, and welcome to Joy Sightings, edition number 31. Today I read from Tales of the Resistance by David and Karen Maines, the chapter entitled The Forbidden Princess. A little background to this story. Amanda, who is princess in Great Park, has come to Enchanted City. In the first book, in Great Park, Amanda had adopted a dragon hatchling, a forbidden thing, and after it grew, it became a dangerous beast that was wicked and had to be slain. So later on in this chapter, the talk of forbidden loves is referring back to that incident when Amanda had loved the dragon. In the courtyard of a small temple on the same street as the grand Dagoda of the enchanter, the forbidden princess came nightly to her balcony, so that all who desired might gaze at her beauty. She was beautiful indeed, but her eyes were empty and her expression blank. "Oh, great park, great park," sighed Amanda, and longed for her friends, Caretaker and Mercy, remembering the circle of sacred flames and the great celebrations. How she would love to make entrance and become real, a princess again. Despite these longings, she contented herself to be doing the crucial work of the kingdom. In the months since slipping into Enchanted City, she had learned respect for her unpolished compatriots in the taxi resistance and for the skills of the chief, big operator, and she had discovered that her own gifts of perfect aim and seeing were invaluable to the cause. Amanda spent many nights in the little courtyard not far from the bustling terminal of the city taxi company. She liked to sit in the soft light of the courtyard lanterns and remember Great Park, the graceful wood doves, the forest creatures, the pattern of leaf and sun and shade on a hidden stream. After a while, Amanda realized that the dark-skinned beauty who came to the balcony was not simply idling away the nights. She was appearing on command. Citizens came to the temple, one here, another there, perhaps two or three together, and turned their faces toward the balcony. A tiny bell rang, a mere whisper of a sound, and then the girl would appear, her soulless eyes staring. "Ah," they would say, "such beauty." At first, Amanda came to the courtyard simply because she needed a rest from the stress of traffic dispatching. Now she came because the plight of the girl drew her, a plight she didn't understand. One night, a damp fog, stinking of sludge smoke and burning garbage, settled on the city. Amanda walked the dark streets, restless for clean air and the sun and a romp on spongy moss. She was not afraid to roam at night. Amanda was not afraid of anything, except her own dangerous stubbornness, a lesson hard learned in a terrible incident which had brought shame to herself, pain to all she loved, and disaster to the only place she would ever call home. She had loved a forbidden thing and had not been the same child since. A child with wildflowers in her hair, whose laughter constantly announced her presence. Amanda once had loved extravagantly, without question. Now she questioned all loves and was cautious about loving anything. On this night, Amanda slipped into the courtyard. The lanterns cast an eerie glimmer in the fog, which oozed from the streets under the heavy outer doors. She stood beneath the balcony window, glad that the girl would not have to make many appearances on this frightful night. The bell whispered, "Oh dear, she had gazed too long." The girl appeared. Amanda was sorry to have disturbed her. "She's very beautiful," said a voice from the shadows behind her. Amanda whirled around. Who was standing in the courtyard? "Don't be afraid." The form moved away from the cloisters. Even in the damp fog, its motion was familiar. The voice was comforting, a well-known voice. Her old impudence returned. "Have you nothing better to do than frighten unsuspecting maidens in dark streets? I thought you were supposed to be out chronicling sightings." But Amanda was glad to see her old friend. Though she had heard much about his exploits, their paths had not crossed since the first day's encounter in the taxi terminal. Hero spoke in a low voice. "The same old Amanda. Be careful what you say. Anyone or anything may be hiding in the shadows. This is the bastion of the enchanter." He lifted a lantern from its hook and carefully shone it in the corners. They were alone. The girl on the balcony had taken her bored silence inside. He was taller than she remembered. By the light of the lantern, she noticed that the planes and angles of his face had broadened, outgrowing the scar which had disfigured a boy's cheek. Now the old wound gave him a rakish, elegant air. He had become handsome. She wanted to protest. "I'm not the same old Amanda. I'm no longer just a play friend." But she suspected he had grown so tall he would never notice that she had grown as well. He pulled her to a bench where they sat together. "Big operator told me you come here often." He spread his dark blue slicker around her shoulders to shelter her from the damp. Its color reminded her of the soft, rich homespun cloth of ranger cloaks, of their flashing silver insignias, of their courage and proud command, and of the forest cry, "The kingdom comes." "Amanda, you need to be careful roaming through Enchanted City. Great dangers lurk in every corner of every street." Amanda stiffened. Her answer was low. "I can take care of myself." But Hero was in earnest. "In Great Park, you are the amazing princess who used to outspit and out-aim any contenders. But this is my territory. Innocence is dangerous in Enchanted City. Case in point. Don't ever come out on rainy nights without a covering, some sort of mackintosh. Even the air bodes ill. People die of night ailment. The health you take for granted in Great Park, the healing powers of mercy, are not natural to this place." Amanda felt an old indignation rise. She was not a child, but just as suddenly it slipped away. She had learned all too well the folly of arrogance. She had been cold. She was glad for the warmth of his shared raincloth. He was right. The paths and forest trails were her native terrain, but the hard paving stones of this dark place were his. Now she must learn from him. The courtyard doors to the street creaked open. A form crept in, and Amanda felt Hero tense beside her and grasp the handle of the hatchet beneath his slicker. A breaker had entered the courtyard. Amanda's own heart quickened. She had once seen the chalky white face, the piercing eyes, the chilling grin, the cudgel raised to bash her as she lay in pain. "To the king," she mentally intoned, "to the restoration." The bell whispered. The girl came to the balcony. The breaker gazed and withdrew to the streets. Hero murmured again, "She's so beautiful, even the no-people come to look." "But her eyes, they're blank. There's no life in them." "Of course," explained Hero. She's the Forbidden Princess."
"Forbidden Princess?"
They were out on the street now, walking back to the taxi company. City-wise, the young man told her the story of the beautiful girls gathered together every year to serve as temple keepers for the enchanter. Chosen for their courage as well as for their beauty, a terrible initiation separated those who were worthy from those who were only beautiful. The novitiates spent a night in a room with severed bulls' heads. Those who didn't weep or whine were chosen to become princesses, who spent the rest of their young lives allowing the curious to gaze on their faces, but forbidden to speak to any admirers.
"How awful," said Amanda.
That's not all. Eventually they become wives to the enchanter. The children they bear are the enchanter's elite guard, burners and breakers, the No People. The enchanter has thousands of wives. Most of them shrivel and waste away, heart sickness. His embrace is so terrible that even beauty and courage are not protection enough. They stood talking before the overhead garage door of the city taxi company and waited for a cab to return rather than bother a mechanic. Sometimes, in the rain, the city was almost beautiful, the way the lights danced on the wet stones. A taxi beeped its horn, a crank creaked inside, the door slid upwards. "Amanda," Hero placed a hand on her shoulder, "don't go to the temple courtyard so often. It's dangerous. There's nothing you can do for the princess. And Big Operator says your work as a dispatcher is invaluable. Hundreds have been helped because of your quick gifts of seeing and aiming." Amanda watched him stride off into the night, confident, his back broad. Nothing she could do? Nothing she could do? Then who would help the forlorn girl? But wait, she had promised nothing. Hero had forgotten too much. She had once slayed a dragon single-handedly in mortal combat. Hero's job was chronicling sightings. Who was to say that her job wasn't the rescuing of forbidden princesses? Amanda went back to the courtyard every night. She went at different times between control board duty, taking different alleys and streets, but she told no one because she was afraid they would forbid her, and Amanda had enough pain from forbidden loves. She asked herself, what would Mercy do in the city with her powers confined by enchantment? Each night when Amanda sat in the courtyard, she silently spoke the names of the king. Whenever the forbidden princess came to the balcony, Amanda closed her eyes, took sure aim, and with her powerful gift of seeing, pointed the names right at the girl's heart. "His Majesty, my sovereign liege lord, His Eminence, the benevolent potentate, His Supreme Holiness, the Lord Monsignor, His Most Royal Highness, the monarch of all, the true king, to him and to the restoration of his kingdom." As Amanda did her lonely work, she watched for the slightest flicker of life in the eyes staring from the balcony, but there was nothing. Guilty memory taunted her. Forbidden love, forbidden love. Crucial concentration came hard. Then one night, as she sighted inwardly, she was sickened by seeing the evil eye of the enchanter, searching, darting to and fro, and Amanda understood she was in peril. She knew she should end her vigils, but there, that very night, a tear dropped from the corner of the girl's eye. A sign of life. Amanda knew she had come again to love a thing dangerous to love. So Amanda returned, hiding in the shadows of the cloisters, scarcely breathing lest she draw the ominous attention of the evil eye in the nearby Dagoda, but aiming the names from her heart to the heart of the girl standing on the balcony. At last, the forbidden princess lifted her eyes as though waking from a trance, and then turned her head toward the shadows as though peering for the silent speaker of the names. The girl had been awakened. The names had done their life-giving work. Now, how to get her out before horror overtook them both? A plan: slip into the courtyard, hide, then help the princess escape in the daylight when the city was sleeping. The next night, Amanda left her earphones and headset hanging neatly on their hook, finished her dispatcher's notes, and crept, without telling anyone, into the little temple where she hid in the darkest corner. Finally, the gatekeeper turned the key in the outside lock. To her surprise, she heard him say, "She's locked inside."
Which she?
Amanda wondered. Her breath quickened. Eyes shut, looking inward, she was horrified to see the eye of the enchanter looking straight at her. An evil smile lit up his face. Closing off sight, she hurriedly began the litany of names. This time she spoke them aloud, urgently evoking the full sum of powers available to her.
"His Majesty the King!" The forbidden princess walked to the balcony. "My sovereign liege!"
The girl leaned over the wrought iron as Amanda herself walked boldly out of the shadows to the paving stones.
"His Eminence!"
The eyes of the forbidden princess filled with tears.
"The most benevolent potentate!"
The tears splashed on the stones.
"His Supreme Holiness!"
The sky overhead began to shine brightly with the faint cast of dawn light.
"The Lord Monsignor!"
The girl broke the silence and spoke, rather wept aloud hysterically.
"It's too late! It's too late! The enchanter comes today to take me to the bridal chamber."
There was a pounding at the gate. Blam! 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 Amanda's heart failed. Too late. The distant echo of the death drums began to sound. Papa, papa, calling sentries from the Dagoda into action. What had she done? Awakened the princess out of her unfeeling numbness so she would be totally aware of the torture ahead? Placed her valuable gifts of seeing and perfect aim as hostage to the enemy? These loves, these terrible loves, would she never learn that love was dangerous? Why risk so much for one miserable girl among so many? Would she never learn about forbidden things? The outer door, a key. Too late, the gatekeeper had returned. Amanda drew herself to full stature and shouted the last names.
"To the monarch of all! To the king! To the restoration of his kingdom!"
She knew she uttered treason, and death was the penalty for her actions. But she was a princess of Great Park. Her heritage was of royal lineage. She would not whine or cry out or beg for mercy. For the sake of the king, she would march proudly to Burning Place. Amanda held high her head as a man entered through the swinging gates. He said, "Thank you, my sister. You honor me well." It was the king himself. Amanda gasped.
But how? The latchkey, the key."
Through the open gates, she could hear the death drums beating louder and faster. "Did you forget that I can open all closed doors?" He looked very plain. There were no golden highlights in his hair. His clothes were common, but the voice. It sounded of clear waters falling over great boulders, of winds blowing across fragrant fields, and the eyes. They contained the hush of the deep, far sky itself, vast and infinite. "Let us hurry to finish this work you have begun," he said, and he stepped beneath the balcony where the princess was weeping hysterically with her head hidden in her arms. "Beloved," he called quietly, "my beloved." The girl raised her head, and her eyes grew wide, and her weeping stopped. The voice of the owner of the names had spoken. She knew him instantly and reached out her hands in an appeal for rescue. Clambering up the vines to the balcony, the king quickly lowered the princess by her wrists to the courtyard stones. "We are a little short of princesses right now where I come from," he explained gently after he himself had vaulted down. "They're all growing up and accomplishing great things in the world." He smiled at Amanda, the old, wonderful smile filled with king's love. And for a moment it was as though they were in the inner circle, surrounded by the dancing, leaping sacred flames. "And they're learning that because some loves are forbidden, not all loves are so." Relief flooded Amanda. She bowed her knee in a courtly curtsy and murmured, "My liege lord." Then, sheltering the frightened girl in his arms, he said to her, "I think you had better come and be a princess in the company of my people." In short order, they piled into a waiting taxi. To Amanda's surprise, Hero was sitting in the front seat. He reached over, gave her hand a squeeze, and said, "Good work." How wonderful it was to be a fellow in a brigade that could arrange last-minute rescues. Amanda glanced through the open doors of the empty courtyard as the taxi pulled away. She felt relief, but jauntiness too. Some of the old spirit of field and stream and childhood returned. A girl had just been rescued from a terrible fate and was now nestled in the embrace of the king. No one, not Hero, not the cabbie, nor his majesty, had scolded her with a "What in the name of great park possessed you?" She smiled back at Hero and was proud because she did not remind him that streetwise, alley-smart, he had said that she could do nothing. It was true. She had done nothing. The names of the king had done it all. But for a field child unused to city ways, she had done nothing very well indeed. Nor did Amanda say, "I can take care of myself," because she was learning that old follies haunt prideful independence, and in the last breathless moments in that tiny courtyard, she had become utterly convinced that the work of the restoration was best done in the company of worthy compatriots.